Talk to me about what does resilience actually mean to you now?
Well, resilience is about, it's a bit like that balloon that you blow up and then you twist it and you turn it, but it pops back open again, And I think I look at resilience in that way because the human spirit is an amazing thing. No matter how low you get, you still wake up in the morning and life still goes on. So I look at resilience and I go, it's just us being twisted and turned and pushed and pummeled and the shape's being changed like that balloon. But at some point, we're going to pop up again. But I think the popping up goes back to you personally accepting that you might be going through a really bad time, putting good people around you to help you, being open to changing yourself, because quite often when people become their most resilient, they've actually gone through a change process because something has happened in their life that has caused them to change, and they become a different person through that process, and that person is more resilient. That doesn't mean they won't go through the terrible times again, because that's what life is, right? It's all the ups and downs, it's the roller coaster. It just means that we'll probably notice it a lot quicker and we'll be able to handle it a lot better. And I think that also we can do a lot around training ourselves to become resilient. We don't have to go through to our deepest depths of, whatever it is we end up to become resilient. You can create a life that's about resilience. You can put good people around you. You can choose to be happy. You can make choices around the friendships that you have, the decisions that you make around the businesses that you work in, the negative people you remove from your life. So there's lots of things that I believe you can do that actually is not about being at your lowest.
So it's almost like it's a muscle that you can strengthen, and then you can structure your life
absolutely
to support.
Yeah, definitely.
Going there as well. You talked about that when you go through something like that, you're not the same person at the end of it. And I was intrigued when you talked about the vulnerability, that you as a leader, Brian Thompson, was it? He said, Sadie, they need to
see the real you.
Sadie that I see.
Yeah.
Tell me about that vulnerability. How did you change as a leader?
Yeah, and this is such a huge issue for women who work in leadership roles, right? Because we feel like we have to be like men sometimes. So we have to be as decisive as men, be as strong as men, and all those silly decisions that we make as women. But there is so much strength in being vulnerable. And I think sometimes we forget what vulnerability actually really is. And vulnerability I see as being yourself, being authentic to who you really are. So whoever you are at home should be 80% of the person that you are at work. You're never going to give 100% of yourself that you are at home to work because it is a different environment, right? So at least 80% of that person should be who you are at work. But it means that you can be unperfect, which is my word. It means that you can make mistakes. It means that you can admit to having made mistakes. It means that you understand that sometimes you're going to be judged and sometimes people are going to say things about you that that aren't true, but if they knew the real you, then they would say things differently. But sometimes you have to ask yourself the question, why don't they know the real you? Is it because they're not trying, or is it because you're not showing it?
You're leading two very significant charities in Fiji. You run an entire state for Harcourts. How on earth do you seem to have it all?
Well, I think it's part of what I said. The message was that, is it about having it all, or is it defining what success looks like for you? And if you create a life for yourself that when you wake up in the morning and you go, I am so lucky to be alive, and there for the grace of God go I, really. You think about all that we have and how lucky we are in this country and the people who work in this organisation, and there for the grace of God go we. And so when you think about life in that way, you have the capability of giving a hell of a lot more than perhaps you would have done if you thought about life differently. If it's about me and I want to take and take and take, as about to giving. And I'm a big believer in the power of the rule of reciprocity. And I think you and I have had this conversation before, where I'm a big believer that I have angels around me because of all of the stuff that I do. And nothing bad is ever going to happen to me because I have these angels. And it's not woo-woo stuff. It's just what I believe in. If I do enough good in this world, then enough good is going to come back to me. And when I made the promise to Lemba, it wasn't just an off-the-cuff promise, and I don't know what she thought when she was dying, and I would hope that she actually believed me when I said that to her, But when you make a promise like that, you keep it. And those kids looked at me as their anchor. And there was no way in the world I was going to let them down. You know, when the Louisa story came up and I realised that I could make a small difference in these parents' and children's life, I just send them to a 5-star hotel for a weekend. And that changes their life, you know. I think people think that it takes a lot of time, but I think when you love your life and you love what you do and you really know what you want to achieve, then it just happens.
How do we survive around you? Like even myself as another woman perhaps working for you or around you, you know, you're this bright light and incredible strength and very driven. Perhaps you would get your own way a lot, I think.
Yeah, and you know, I have to be really careful I don't run people over. And it's self-awareness. And for me, it's putting people around me who are going to pull me up. It's having people around me who are going to poke holes into me. It's people in my life who are the closest to me know they can sit me down and say, you need to stop. You shouldn't have had that conversation. What were you thinking when you used that tone? You know, and to be really, really self-aware as a leader who is a high achiever and runs at a speed that perhaps a lot of other people can't, that I don't run people over and I don't disengage people. And I think that those of us who are made in this way, one of the reasons why we become successful is we become really self-aware. And what people saw of me on the stage today, people didn't know about that part of my life. So I don't go around telling people that's what I do. I just achieve it. Because I think if I did tell people 100% of everything that I do, they would probably put me away in an asylum and lock the doors. So it's a good question, but I think for me it's about self-awareness as a leader is a really big thing because you just can't run people over.
Well, I feel very privileged to know the gentle woman inside the very powerful Sadhana.
I am. This is the thing, right? I mean, I think people see this facade and I'm not. I'm this kooky, crazy, gentle, soft-hearted, woo-woo woman who believes in all the other stuff as well. And, you know, I cry and I get really hurt and I get really upset and I have bad days. I call my doona days where I just don't want to get out of bed and the world really pisses me off and people really make me angry and I kind of go, you know, you're all so... Like the story I shared about Louisa, and it's true. And when something really bad happens to me in this life, I think about the work that I do in Fiji and I go, you know, I'm not 16-year-olds facing death. Get over it.
Yeah, it brings things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think you're amazing. Thank you so much for being our inspirational woman. Thank you so much for being my friend.
Oh, thank you for letting me share my story and you're an amazing friend to have, so thank you.